is honestly, I think, one of my favorite workshops because I feel it's one of those important things to take in and learn. And I always say practice makes perfect with APA style writing, right? Because the more you do it, the easier it is. And that's exactly what, this workshop is here to help with. So please, if you have any questions, I know I'll be in the chat. You can always place them there. I know I always forget things when I think about them, questions during presentations. So if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to put it in the chat. I can always assist the best I can. And then, of course, there's a Q&A session at the end. So if you do want to hold your questions, that is okay as well. But we are both here to help you in any way that we can today. So never hesitate to ask any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Caitlin. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that we usually go over just some brief ground rules. So I'll just touch on those briefly. I'm sure none of you guys have, this is your first workshop, but I like to just be sure. If you do decide to turn your camera on, just make sure that you're being professional. This is still an academic setting, so if it's not something that you would do or wear, if you were in an academic setting in like a lecture hall, don't do it if your camera's on. But with that being said, we do love having pets and kids around, so don't feel like you have to shoo them away. If you have your camera on, definitely let them stop in and say hi. And like Caitlin said, we are going to have a question and answer session at the end. So please, write down your questions so we can address them there. And let's try and keep the questions that we ask related to APA format, because that is the topic we're going over this afternoon. And of course, if you have any other questions outside of that, like about an assignment or something else more specific to what you're struggling with, feel free to reach out to your academic advisor and they'll be happy to assist you. So on the agenda for today, we're going to go over the APA 7th edition template. So that's something that you'll find in your classes. It's really helpful for you to utilize it for writing your papers. We're going to go over in-text citations, and we'll also discuss the reference page. And again, there's that Q&A session at the end. All right, I just wanted to check, can everyone see my slides changing? I had an issue at some point before that no one saw my slides changing, but are we on the APA 7th edition template slide? Do you all see that? Can you give me a thumbs up or put it in the chat? I'd appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you, Lacey.
Good for me.
Thanks, Caitlin. Appreciate you guys. All right, so before you start writing your APA 7th edition paper, of course, you want to make sure you download the template from your class in Blackboard. So we'll have a screenshot on the second slide where we'll show you where to go and how to actually download it. And if you don't use the template, you'll have to basically set up the entire APA page yourself. So when I was a student, I would always use the APA template just because it was easier to save it onto my desktop and refer back to it rather than adjusting the margins and the line spacing. It is doable, like you can do it if you want to, just get more familiar with how to set up an APA template, or if you can't find the template, but say to use the template. It's pretty straightforward. It's already set up for you. And there's 3 parts to it. So there's the title page, there's the body, and then there's the reference page. So those are the 3 parts of the APA template. So as promised, here is the screenshot of how you can find it in your class. So I know I wear glasses, but even on my end, it's a little blurry. So I will say that on the left-hand side, there is like a menu bar in all of your classes. And if you scroll down a little bit in that menu bar, you'll see an option that says like APA Help or APA 7th edition, something along the lines of just the wording APA, right? So you're going to want to click on that, and then it's going to open up another page with a bunch of APA resources that you can review at your leisure. But for the purposes of this presentation, you're just going to want to focus on the title page template. So you'll click that, and then it'll download the APA template to your computer. And so you'll see in the screenshot here on the right side, it downloaded it to, it looks like the desktop version of Microsoft. So it'll come up with something that says enable editing. If you're using the desktop version, you can choose that. Or if you're using Microsoft Word online, you would just want to take this template from your downloads folder and upload it to Microsoft Word online. So they're just different ways to do essentially the same thing. And if you ever need help with something like that, feel free to give a call, and your academic advisor may be able to walk you through it, or we can connect you with someone from the Center for Academic Success. So just some points here on the left-hand side. It says to download and use this template, and your paper will be correctly set up every time. And that's amazing because you don't really have to do any work. You just have to, download the template and then, just change the information that's there. So here's what the title would look like here. It's not the title page. Let me go back here so I can show you guys the title page. So this would be the very first page of the APA template. And at the very top, you would just include the title of your essay. So whatever that title is, you would include it at the very top where it's in bold. And then in the next few lines, you'll see where it says first name and last name. So of course, you wouldn't want to leave it as first name and last name. You would put in your first name and your last name. And then the department name, post-university, and just some other basic information that you want to spell out here on the title page. So again, everything is already set up for you. So you're really just typing in the information in place of that. So then for the second page of the template, this is kind of where you'll start writing the meat of your essay. So it'll be the body. Right before the body, you'll have another opportunity to put the title, and then the introduction would begin in that first paragraph. So then you'll have the third page here, which is really not going to be the third page. It'll kind of be the very last page after the body of your essay. And here's where you will include the references. So we'll go into that a little bit deeper, in future slides, but you'll just have the author's name, the author's first initial, just kind of the information showing where you got whichever resources you used that are included in the body of your essay. So in-text citations. In-text citations, they may seem difficult, but they're not. You just want to remember two important things. Those things are the author's last name and the year of publication. So the year the article or the book or whatever you're using was published. And there are a few exceptions to this rule. So of course, if there's no author, you still have to utilize the publication or the organization in place of that. If there's no year of publication, you'll use ND. So I'm assuming that's like no date. And if it's a direct quote, you do have to use a page number if one is available. So I was talking to a student the other day, and they didn't know that you had to use the page number for direct quotes. And it's something that, they were getting dock points for. So it's really important that if you are pulling words directly from an article or a book or anything like that, you have to cite exactly where in the book, that you got it from. So here's just a couple of examples of what in-text citations would look like. So if there is one author, you'll see here at the end of the little kind of excerpt from a article or book here, it has the author's last name, and it also has the year of publication. So the last name starts with an A here. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's right here. And then there's a comma after it. And it's the year of 2019. And the period is always going to be on the outside of the parentheses, not before and not inside of the parentheses. So you just want to keep that in mind as well. And if there is no author, you would include the organization, kind of like we discussed on the previous slide. So this little explanation about, 3 million people worldwide being affected by depression is from the World Health Organization, and it's from the year of 2018. So that's how you would cite an in-text citation if there is no author. And if there's no date, again, it follows a similar, format to it being in the parentheses. But here you just see that it says ND instead of the year because there's no date there. So you can tell that this, excerpt is from the American Psychological Association, but there was no date. So you would just put ND instead. Right, so I'll give you guys a moment to take any notes here, and if you want to take a picture of the slide, you can do that as well. This slideshow is also recorded, so it's on the YouTube channel, but I'll just leave it up here for a moment. All right, we're going to move on now. So here are a few more examples of in-text citation. So if you are using like the author's names, you could embed it in the sentence rather than using parentheses. So that's what you'll see here. The author's names are stated at the very first part. So it says Gath and Veronis, in parentheses is 1984. So that's when the book or article was published. And then it just says found that the most important element in comprehending non-native speech is familiarity with the topic. So when you embed the author's names into the sentence, you don't necessarily need to use the APA in-text citation where there's parentheses as well. So you can just include it as listed here. And when there's multiple works, you would kind of just show that here. So in the parentheses after this piece here, it says the author's name, so Gath and Veronis, and it says 1984. So it could be the same article that was just used on the previous point. But there's also something that was pulled from Kreck and Thomas in their 2004 study. So they included both of them here, and they separated them with a semicolon. So, if you decide to use 2 or 3, you just want to make sure that you're separating them in that manner. And when there's a direct quote, you want to use a page number. So here you'll see it's from, again, Gath and Veronis, 1984, so same article or book. And the direct quote, it starts with quotation marks, right? It says, the listener's familiarity with the topic of discourse greatly facilitates the interpretation of the entire message. And this is from page 85. So you'll see that the start quotes, those first ones, they start at the beginning of the quotation. And then there's closing quotes at the end after message. And then there's the parentheses with the P, period, page number. Then there's a closing parentheses, and there's a period after that. So again, you can take a picture of this. I'll leave it up for like a couple of seconds so you can write it down. But these are just a few more examples of how you would cite something in the body of your essay. All right, and just referring to the chat, just in case anyone missed it, Caitlin has been posting some really helpful resources. The most recent chat that she's included had some information for the Center for Academic Success, as well as Writing Center resources and some additional APA style resources. So feel free to click on those resources, bookmark them on your computer so that you can refer back to them when you're writing your paper. I think those are very helpful. So, don't hesitate to take advantage of them. All right, moving on. So reference page entries. So if you're citing something in your paper, it must show up in your reference page and vice versa. So if you're going to include something in the body of your text, and if you're going to cite it in the body of your text, you need to also include it in the end of your paper, so in the reference page. And all reference page entries must be in alphabetical order. So, you'll we'll show examples, I believe, in the next couple of pages, but it's going to be, like A to Z, using the author's last name or the organization. It just has to be organized in alphabetical order. And reference page entries have a hanging indent where the first line is flush left and the remaining lines are indented. So I did come across a resource to show you how to include a hanging indent. So I'm going to include that in the chat here. Give me one moment. All right, so I'll include a YouTube video so you can refer to it. So feel free to refer to that video if you need any guidance with creating a hanging indent. And something that I didn't know when I was using APA format in college was that, and when I first got started, was that every resource is cited differently. There might only be slight variations, but there are different. So the way that you cite a book isn't going to be the way that you cite a YouTube video or an article, from the internet. So within the next couple slides, we're going to go over some examples of how to cite different sources in APA format. So on this slide, it'll show you how to cite a book. So you're going to need the author's name, right? So the last name, and you can use only the initial for their first name and their middle name. So really the only full name that you'll need for a book is their last name. You'll need the publication date. You'll need to include the title. The format of the title is important, so please make note of that. So the title is going to be in italics, but you only want to capitalize the first word of the title and the subtitle and proper nouns. So everything's not going to be capitalized, and you'll see that in the example in the next few points. And you'll include the publisher. There's a note here saying to not include the publisher location, so you can, not include that. And for books retrieved online, you want to include the DOI if available. Someone always asks me what a DOI stands for, and I always forget. So I will Google it again, and I'll put it in the chat in case anyone does ask. But you just want to include URLs only if they will work for the readers. And for articles retrieved through databases, don't include the database information or the URL in the reference. And for more information, you can see the APA style and grammar guidelines that are linked here. And the example below here, you can see that the author's last name is Post. His first name starts with an E, so it can be Eric, Elizabeth. We don't know, but it does start with an E. The date is from 1923. And you'll see here how the title is formatted. So only the first word is capitalized and it's all in italics. And you'll see that there's no proper nouns or anything like that. So it's etiquette in society, in business, in politics, and at home. And the publisher is Funk and Wagnalls. And here is the URL. And we know that it'll work for readers because it's included here. You don't want to include URLs if they're not going to work for the reader. So if your professor is looking at your paper and they're looking at your references, they might want to actually click on the article that you're referring back to and read it for themselves. So that's why you just want to make sure that the link does work if you use it. and Caitlin included the DOI. So it is a digital object identifier. And there are also some examples there. So that's really helpful. If anyone was wondering, just refer to that chat there. And here's how you would cite an article. So again, it's slightly different than the book, but you still want to keep track of how you cite different resources, because the chances are when you're writing a big research paper, you're going to not just use a book, right? You're probably going to use articles and videos as well. So you'll have the author's last name. So this is the same as the book. So the last name of the author and only the initials for their first and middle name. You'll include the date of publication. So the year and month for monthly publications and the year, month, and day for daily or weekly publications. You'll include the title of the article. So you only want to capitalize the first word of the title and subtitle and proper noun. So it seems like it's the same rules for capitalizing, the titles and the book citation. And the title of the publication is going to be in italics. You'll also include the volume number in italics and the issue number if that's provided to you. The page numbers of the article should be included if given. And for articles retrieved online, include the DOI if it's available. And again, only include URLs if they're going to work for readers. So for articles retrieved through a database, again, do not include the database info or URL in the reference. For more information, see the APA style grammar and guidelines pages on databases, DOIs, and URLs. So those are, included here as well for you to utilize. So here are some specific examples of citations for different articles. So the journal article, magazine article, and newspaper article. So I'll leave those here so you guys can take a picture or take notes, and I'll just go through some of the differences here. So you'll see in the journal article, and really for all three examples, it has the full last name of the author. For the journal article, you'll notice that there are two authors, so they're both listed there. And in the journal article, there's the year. The title of the journal article isn't in italics, so that's something to make note of as well. And then I believe this is the publisher. Let me go back here and see the title. So the title of the publication is in italics. Okay, so this is the title of the publication here. It says Consulting Psychology Journal, so that would be included in italics. And then there's the DOI, the page numbers, and other ways for you to easily locate the journal article if you were to ever pick up this journal or go and refer to it online. The magazine article, you'll see here that the date is from 2006. It's the May and June edition. The title is Designing Babies and, Eugenics Race with China. It's from The Futurist. I think it's volume 40, pages 18 through 20. And the newspaper article is very similar. So you'll see it all here. You'll see the date. It's from January 11, 2006. The title here is about the jury convicting a man in drunk driving death. It's from the Center Daily Times. And I believe it's page 1A or public. I don't know this article, but this is where you would find it here. I'll just leave that up for a couple more seconds if you want to take a picture or take additional notes. All right, we're going to go to the next slide now. So web pages and social media, those are going to be cited slightly differently than books and articles are. So the author, if it's known, you're going to include that. If there is no author, use the title. You'll also want to include the date of publication. Again, if there's no date, use ND. The title of the web page should also be included in italics. If the publisher is known, you want to include that as well. If the author and the publisher are the same, you don't have to include the publisher. And you would also want to be sure to include the URL or the web address of the web page. So I'll leave that up here for a couple of seconds if you're still taking notes, and then we'll move on to the last few slides. All right, we're going to move on now. So here are just a few examples of citing web pages. So you'll see at the very top, there is a web page from the writer. I'll try to say it's Asmelash. Their first name starts with an L, so it can be Larry, it can be Louise. We don't know, but it does start with an L. The date is August 14th, 2019. So you'll notice that the year is placed first. I know when I'm normally writing a date, I'll put maybe the month first and then the day and the year. But in APA format, you want to include the year first, then you'll spell out the month and you'll include the day. You'll include a comma, it looks like, but it'll be after the year only. Then you'll see that the title of this webpage, it's Social Media Use May Harm Teens' Mental Health by Disrupting Positive Activities, study says, and you'll see that this is from CNN. And the link to the article is here. So if you're looking at someone's reference page and you click on this article, you should be redirected to, well, if you click on this link, you should be redirected to the article they're referring to. And if there's a web page with no author, but there's an organization, you would cite it this way. So you'll see the organization for this example here is the American Cancer Society. The year it was published is 2019. And the title of the webpage is Genetics and Cancer. And then the link is here. So if it's a social media resource, like this one, you'll see it's social media or YouTube. It's from Howcast. And it came out in 2010, October 29th. And the title is How to Recognize Claustrophobia Symptoms. In brackets, you'll see here that it is a video and it is from YouTube. And then there is the link that's included lastly. So I'll leave that up for about 10 or 15 seconds. And then we'll go over to the Q&A session so that you guys can ask any questions that you may have. And then we'll go from there.